in the dead of night, where the forgotten lie and the restless stir. One man walks the boundary between the living and the lost. He is known as the gravedigger, caretaker of the forsaken, keeper of the untold, a witness to horrors buried by time. These stories are not meant for the light of day. They are chronicles pulled from the cold, dead, rotting soil of the past. Each grave tells a story, a tale of terror, betrayal, and madness, or sometimes something far worse. So light your lantern and tread carefully. Prepare yourself to uncover what should have stayed buried. Welcome to the Gravedigger's Dark Chronicles. Now your host, the Gravedigger himself.
Come in close now, closer still. You feel that cold, don't you? That sliver of ice crawling up your spine. That's not the wind, my friend. That's Evergloom Hollow remembering you. Sit yourself down beside this old grave digger. Wrap your coat tight and don't look too far into the trees. Shadows here have teeth, the tale I'm about to tell. This ain't some campfire yarn whipped up to spook children or pass a cold night. Know this story. This story's real, raw, unforgiving. It's soaked in blood, warped by grief, and buried in a patch of cursed earth where not even weeds dare grow. It's about true love, war, madness, and stones. Stones with X-shaped eyes that still watch and still scream. We call this one Stones with X-shaped eyes, the curse of Evergloom Hollow. Our story begins deep in the mountains, where the trees grow too close together, and the sky always seems a shade too dark, even at noon. Out here, the wind doesn't whistle, it groans. The animals don't bark or chirp. They hide, and if you listen carefully, you'll notice something worse than silence. You'll notice breathing. The trail that leads to Evergloom Hollow isn't drawn on any map. It's like the land itself hides it. It slithers through the forest like a serpent, coiling around rocks and roots with a mind of its own. You don't find the town of Evergloom Hollow by accident. It finds you. A group of hikers once wandered in by mistake. 5 of them went to the woods, but only 1 came back. Broken, bloodied, and whispering things that didn't make sense. Said the trees sang at night, said the dirt pulsed, said the stones watched him. That man died 6 days later, curled up in his basement, with his fingernails torn off and his ears stuffed with cotton. He'd written something on the wall in his own blood. Just 2 words, they whisper. But I knew that path long before those poor fools stumbled onto it. I've walked it more times than I can count. Every week, rain or shine, I make my way down into the hollow to lay fresh roses at the stones. Why? Because someone's got to remember. Someone's got to warn the ones who wander too far. Someone's got to speak the names the earth tries to forget. Now lean in. Let me tell you about the man who damned the hollow with grief and rage. His name was Dr. Ezekiel Ravenscroft, a slender man with a muscular build, in his late 40s, dark hair, with a handlebar mustache. You see, it was 1863. The war between the states had grown so savage that even the crows refused to fly over the battlefields. That's where Ravenscroft came from, a field surgeon. The kind of man who could slice out a bullet and sew up an artery with trembling hands and no anesthetic. He was brilliant. Too brilliant, maybe, but the war had chewed him up from the inside. The men he saved, they still screamed, in his dreams, in his mind. Some say he started talking to the corpses before he left. Others say he kept bits of them, hair, teeth, fingers. But I think the worst part wasn't what he did. It was what he saw. His eyes had gone hollow, like all the dying had vacuumed the soul right out of him. So he vanished. He ended up in the town of Evergloom Hollow, back when it was a bustling scatter of miners and widows trying to start fresh. He bought a lonely old homestead just over the cemetery hill. Folks thought he wanted peace, maybe penance. But what no one knew was that under that house, buried beneath layers of cold, weeping stone, it was a natural cave, a black maw in the earth. In that cave, he made it a lab, but not the kind with scalpels and sutures. No, he started collecting things, bones that didn't belong to any known creature. Blood-stained books written in tongues that bent your eyes if you stared too long. Powders that shimmered like they were alive. The cave became a shrine to madness. Then came Eleanor Sinclair, a woman in her mid-40s, honey-colored hair, petite build. She had the smell of our innocence. She arrived on a foggy dawn, riding a gray moray with saddlebags full of books. A school teacher fleeing sorrow from the east, elegant, gentle, and bright as spring rain. The first time Eleanor met Dr. Ezekiel Ravenscroft, she didn't see what the other townsfolk saw in him. She didn't flinch at his haunted eyes, didn't shy away from the shadows clinging to him. She saw the man underneath, the one buried beneath blood and silence, and somehow, she made him believe again. They courted in secret, not hearing the whispers and glib remarks. Meet in secret behind the general store, where her laughter made the dusk tremble. They walked the trails by the silver stream, where the mist never lifted. She made him want to leave the hollow, to bury the past and begin anew. But the hollow, it doesn't let go. Especially not when blood is still owed. They came in the night, 12 of them, mounted and filthy, eyes burning like coals. Outlaws. They'd heard whispers, tealies of gold buried in the hills of Evergloom Hollow, stories of a forgotten town with no law. They rode in laughing and took the town in a single night. There was no sheriff, no guns drawn, just fear and surrender. They raided homes, drank the stores dry, burned the church to cinders. But worst of all, they found Eleanor. She wasn't afraid for herself. Her first instinct was to protect the children. She stood in front of the schoolhouse, arms wide, begging for mercy. She pleaded with reason, with grace, with hope. But the men who came that night weren't men anymore. They were something less. And what they did to Eleanor, no words can describe it. Some things are better left buried in silence. She screamed for her true love, Ezekiel, once. Just once. And somewhere miles away, beneath flickering candlelight and blood-stained books, he heard her. When Ravenscroft saw her limp, lifeless body in the state it was lying in the center of town, he snapped. Some say he went mad. He didn't just run, he flew. Through the woods, over stone and stream, faster than flesh should allow. When he reached the cave, he didn't weep. He didn't scream. He just began to work. He drew sigils with bone dust. He crushed teeth into paste. He poured glowing liquids into vials that pulsed like hearts. He muttered words that should not exist. He didn't seek vengeance. He wanted to conjure damnation. When he emerged from the cave, his eyes were no longer hollow. They were full of fire, of hatred, of power. He walked into the center of town where Eleanor's body still lay, just as the moon reached its peak. And he held 2 vials glowing like molten gold. He uncorked them and poured them on the ground. The outlaws didn't burn. They didn't melt. Their skin blistered, their bones turned inside out, but they remained alive. Conscious, they screamed, but the screams didn't echo. The town swallowed them. Their mouths stretched into impossible shapes. Their eyes boiled into X's. And as they writhed, they watched him as he just stood over them. The townsfolk tried to stop him. They begged him to stop. But when they reached for Eleanor's broken body, the fire in his eyes reignited. Because not one of the townspeople tried to stop the outlaws, so he killed them too. Not with rage, but with precision, like a surgeon would do. They fell, one by one, their bodies warping into ash and sludge. And then, silence. He gathered their remains into sacks and dragged them to the cemetery. He buried each one. No prayers, no names, just dirt and stone. Then he carried Eleanor, the only woman he had ever loved. He picked her up softly, like she was still breathing. He kissed her once, whispered something no one ever heard, and laid her in the grave he dug with his own shaking hands. Then he carved the stones, each one into a face, and each face had eyes carved into X's, all but one, Eleanor's. Her stone bore only a single rose, delicate and aching. They say he stayed there, whispering to the graves until the fog rolled back in and took him. But I know better, because I've heard the stones. They whisper when the wind stops. They moan when the moon is full. Sometimes they scream, long and thin, like nails across bone. Sometimes they weep. And Ezekiel, oh, he's still there. Some say he roams the woods, draped in his surgeon's coat, calling for Eleanor. Some say he tends the graves, carving deeper into the faces, making sure they never forget. But most say he listens. Listens to the stones, to the screams, to the cursed he gave life. So now you know, now you understand. If you ever walk too far into those woods and feel the ground breathe beneath your boots, turn back. If you see a stone marked with an X, just keep walking. If you hear whispers behind your ear when there's no wind, don't answer, because Evergloom Hollow doesn't forget, and neither do the stones. Well, what did you think of our tale? If you enjoyed this descent into madness, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Gravedigger's Dark Chronicles. If you'd like to keep the show sponsor-free and the lanterns burning, consider donating at buymeacoffee.com/newworldpodcasts. Every bit helps us drag another tale from the shadows. Now go, leave this tale where it belongs, buried in the hollow. But remember, Evergloom still waits, and it hungers for fools. So stay eerie, friends, and stay alive.